Alright, what's going on, guys? It is your boy TKD123 here, back again with another video, and today we're going to go over a little bit of more details and stuff like that revolving around Days Gone. And while this isn't one of the Days Gone overview videos where we went over some core details and just tidbits about the game as a whole, including the characters of Days Gone as well as the freakers of Days Gone, we did full overviews of those. Make sure to go check out those videos down below in the description. However, this is going to be somewhat of a news roundup that we have for the game. So this can be like one of the last news roundups of the game before Days Gone comes out next week. And so without further ado, let's talk about the review embargo and some file sizes and day one patches for Days Gone. Now, if there's a few of you out there that don't know what a review embargo is, here's how it kind of goes down. This is kind of like my basic, kind of breakdown of what a review embargo is. And so, before a game's release, typically the publisher or the developers themselves, or whoever else in the industry that is making a game, for example, in this case, probably it was Sony or PlayStation itself or Sony band themselves, they will send out review copies to different publications, different websites, and different YouTube channels. That way they can review the game, play the game before release, and then have a review and set before release. And so people can make an opinion, and it could be a really good way to publicize your game if it's getting really good review scores from different publications and big sites. And so it's a way, obviously, for the word to get out, kind of like the last hurrah, the last bit of marketing to market the game a little bit more, so that way it has a bigger pop upon release day. And so the review embargo is a date that is set with pretty much every game that has this, where you cannot talk about the game until this specific day. So this is when reviews will go live, in a sense. And so the review embargo is just a date that everyone just abides by, that hey, you cannot talk about the game further than you can say that you are playing the game, but you cannot say any details if you like it, you don't like it, this and the third, until that review embargo hits. So the interesting thing about Days Gone, which I think at the end of the day could be a bad thing, honestly, it could be nothing, honestly, it could be nothing, but it could be a bad thing here. The official review embargo date when it gets lifted is a day before the game comes out on April 25th, on Thursday, next Thursday coming up. And so that is a little bit concerning because, typically it is kind of an unspoken thing here that in the industry, when you have an embargo that releases either the day before release date, on release date, maybe after the release date, it could be because they are setting that date because there's something wrong with the game and they know that there's something wrong with the game, or maybe they have a very low expectation of the scores going into it, and so they'll want to not have those scores that they potentially could see as being negative or not as great, and have those scores not to the public until after the game's release. And so this is negatively what people do and what companies and developers do, because so that it won't sway the person like me, for example, that is going to buy Days Gone as a result, whatever, and I could potentially, let's say that this review embargo was today is April 17th, so what if it released about a week and a half and some change before the game release date, right? If the scores came out today and I look at the score and it gets a 70 or 60, and I don't think Days Gone is going to get a 70 or 60, but let's say hypothetically it does, right? I could be swayed to not buy that game, and thus the overall kind of stigma of the game going up to launch is overall lowered, thus less people will buy it in theory. And so that's the whole theory behind having review embargoes. If they are closer to release date, that's typically a bad sign, because it does mean that they could potentially be hiding something about the game, or potentially be not as committed or as grandiose about their thoughts on Days Gone as a whole. And while I'm sure there are plenty of different games that have been great, and I've had review embargoes that are pushed up to the release date and do this technique that we're seeing with Days Gone, it is concerning because it is a status quo to have your review embargo kind of push up to the release date when you don't love your project that you're about to put out, you know what I'm saying? And to kind of just bring it home to PlayStation stuff, for example, God of War's review embargo. And what's up, guys, it is your boy TKD from the editing process here, and I double checked my stats here to know of the God of War embargo when that lifted, and I was severely wrong. I don't know where I got the impression that the God of War reviews for embargo were lifted a month before release. It was on April 12th, so the game came out April 20th. 30th. So my apologies on that, my bad, but it still says the point that, even, God of War was released their, reviews and embargoes 8 days before the game came out. And so that is something to be said still, and still prove the point that it is kind of odd that Days Gone has their embargo a little bit up more closer to release, literally the day before release. And so that's just what it was. Sorry about the miscommunication, but let's get on with the rest of it. I swear, I think it was like a month before the game came out. It was a long time. Like we knew a while before the release of the game that people were loving the game, calling it the game of the year, this and the third. And so you might say, hey Kev, God of War is an established franchise. That's not a fair comparison. Okay, let's take a brand new IP and PlayStation's stable and compare its review embargo to Days Gone's review embargo. Horizon Zero Dawn, made by Guerrilla Games, a great open world game, came out in 2017. That game's review embargo was a week before launch. And so I believe, if that's being said, that is the closest comparison we have here. They are both new IPs, they're both PlayStation exclusives. However, the Horizon Zero Dawn game, got a review embargo that was a week before release, as opposed to this one, which is a day before release. And so I think this is very telling, guys. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that Days Gone is going to get, like a 70 or a 60. If you're to ask me what was the going to be the score on a betting standpoint, I believe I've said that on Twitter, but I think my number is 84. I think it's gonna be the 84, 86 range. I think it'll be mid 80s. I don't think it'll break 90. It might. Who knows? I really hope. I hope it breaks 90. I hope it's amazing, right? But I feel like it's gonna be an 84 to 86 game. It's gonna be a pretty okay game, you know what I'm saying? But let me know what you think here in the comments below. Are you expecting Days Gone to get in mid 80s? Do you think it's gonna be better? Do you think it's gonna be worse? What do you think about this review embargo date? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. But going on from that, let's say the reviews are pretty good and you decide to purchase Days Gone. They have also released the official numbers for how big the game is going to be, as well as a day one patch and detailing that as well. And so Days Gone right now is currently clocking on the digital version of the game will take up 67 gigabytes of the PS4, and so it's a pretty big game, you know what I'm saying? Like, for comparison's sake, God of War was, I believe, 40 or 45 gigabytes, something like that, I believe. I'm not quite sure. And I believe Spider-Man was also around that as well. So, like, if we're thinking of Marvel Spider-Man, which is probably a better comparison, even though God of War is somewhat of an open world game, it's more of a hub open world game. It's a little bit different than a traditional open world game. So we'll use Spider-Man as an example as well. So Spider-Man clocking in at 45 gigabytes, kind of just, get a read on the graphics on that one and how big the game map was overall. And of course, all 45 gigs aren't taken out by just the open world. Of course, there are cutscenes to take account of. There's of course dialogue choices and everything. But you can see by comparison's sake that of course Days Gone will have a bigger gigabyte size, because overall it's a way bigger game. We're talking about massive open world. We're talking about a bunch of characters. We're talking about handling the whole system of the hordes and different freegers and stuff like that. So I'm assuming, and plus on top of that, which we got news a few weeks ago, I just thought of in my head that we have something crazy about like 18 or some like crazy amount of cutscenes in the game as well. So of course those have to be rendered and have to be HD and put into the game. So it is not hard to believe that it is 67 gigabytes for Days Gone on the digital version of release. And so interesting how they note the digital version, because most times the digital and the physical version, obviously they take up similar spaces because they're the same game. It's just one's digital, one's physical. And even though you have a physical copy of a game, the game doesn't actually run on that disc anymore. It runs it just downloads to your console and then it runs that way. It's a little weird how they do on PS4 era stuff, but it should be similar whether you're on digital or physical. And even something here to take into account before we move on to the day one patch, even though the day one patch isn't really a lot there, but I'll just say what it is here in a little bit. But to be more comparison's sake, to compare Horizon Zero Dawn to Days Gone again, it looks like Horizon Zero Dawn, when it first launched, it was 40 gigabytes. So that's actually impressive to think about, that whole massive game was 40 gigs. And in another sake of comparison, Red Dead Redemption 2 was over 100 gigabytes. So you can see that Days Gone falls somewhere in between there. Somewhere in between Horizon Zero Dawn and Red Dead, you get the size and scope of the game that we call Days Gone, dependent on the different sizes of their file sizes. And lastly here, it is no secret, most games get a day 1 patch. However, this one for Days Gone is going to be a little bit smaller, nothing too crazy here. It will be patch 1.02, and it seems that the update will not consist of anything game changing or anything game breaking. It will just, be there to supplement any bugs or any kinks or any iron out, stuff like that. And so there isn't, as far as I'm aware, a size for this day 1 patch. I'm sure it'll come out next week. I'm sure we'll hear more about the actual size of that day 1 patch next week. But as far as we know, it is called version 1.02, and it's just there to iron out some things and do some bug fixes as well. It doesn't seem like there's any major feature in the game that will not be accessible without the patch. And ladies and gentlemen, that has been the quick news roundup of Days Gone, some stuff we got in the news here today. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think that it is bad for the review embargo to be that close to release? Do you feel that the file sizes are pretty comparable and could be telling of the size and everything? Are you worried about the file size of Days Gone? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. And make sure also, while you were down there, to check our description where you can find our links down below. You can find our Twitch, our Twitter down below, as well as our Discord. Make sure you can follow those links down below in the description. Thank you for watching, and as always, greatness awaits.